Right, that's the relatively quick overview of the story so far, and all of Gregor's identities. Now, who's next? Oh yes, Rodya. Next we have Princess of La Mancha Land, Rodya. It starts with Rodya in the middle of doing her parade, saying that they were happy at first. Don Quixote spent his days fixated by dreams. He had his own charming mirth. She saw it as a good life. The worst thing that she had to do was placidly indulge his stories. Her memories of her life as a human had faded away. Her life as a blood fiend was considered better than that, reasoning that's why she decided to become his kindred. Either that or she was seduced by the promise that her beauty would be made to last for all eternity. She began to understand Don Quixote only when she began to create her own kindreds, when her own bloodline began to grow in number, understanding that she wanted them to be happy, to free them of crippling loneliness, as he was the first to suffer from it. At least that's what she thought. Then a traveller visited their castle and deluded Don Quixote into that sickening manipulation that his dream could somehow be realised in the physical universe. She then spoke to Sancho, how Don Quixote always tried to bring them closer, as if they were sisters, seeing it as fortunate that neither of them was the friendly type, putting up a wall between them and the rest of the world, distancing themselves from each other. Even so, she had a degree of faith in her, that her strength, ability, and her more down-to-earth perspective on life that heavily contrasted Don Quixote's wild imaginations. Sancho never made kindreds of her own, yet she seemed to look after hers. This distance brought her plan to fruition, letting Sancho take care of the family, her kindreds, while she worked on that. Mentioning that Don Quixote's sanity was completely broken. It would have happened eventually. Well, he destroyed his castle and built a bizarre amusement park in its place. He rambled about a plan that sounded like it came from a madman, that they could coexist with humans, that they must live begging for stagnant blood in packs while veins pulsating with hotly flowing blood was walking right past them, that they must subsist on hemobars, which makes pastel paste seem more flavorful, that all kindreds must live trapped in a fate worse than a blood bag's, all for the future where humans and blood fiends coexist in harmony. Don Quixote's eyes had conviction that they could endure even the yearning for blood. Desire isn't something that can be easily overcome. Desire broke her undying loyalty. Her hunger coerced her to think of committing the unthinkable, committing the crime of filial impiety. Either that or she lacks the strength to pursue the dream that he does. She remembered a peddler, a merchant of odds and ends who always came to visit them at the amusement park. Seeing Don Quixote as tragically naive, swindled into buying every single false relic that was brought to him, she understood that they weren't all counterfeits. She and Sancho sometimes worked together behind Don Quixote's back to threaten the peddler into getting an authentic relic the next day. Another day suffering through that hunger, she asked the peddler about a specific relic, asking about the legendary Helm of Mambrino that allowed the wearer to be on equal terms, or equal ground, with all those around them. The peddler raided tombs, but wasn't aware of their intentions for that artifact. Neither could understand the other, no matter how long they lived. Gregor claimed that it wasn't true, that humans were starting to see them in a new light. She saw it from the apex of her parade, as humans looked up at her and had happy smiles and blood fiends, who shuffled along them with their eyes lost and wavering with hunger. She didn't see it as mattering anymore. It didn't matter if they saw them in a different light or not. What matters was that she and her children were going hungry. Sancho even agreed with her. They couldn't just sit there and watch Barry corrupt Don Quixote with that silver tongue. The preparations for the carnival were complete. She had to leave that endlessly whirling yet stagnant self-devouring parade and announce the beginning of a true feast of blood, seeing it as going to be beautiful. Now, as with the Priest of La Mancha Land Gregor identity, a divergence point is pointless for someone that was supposed to be born over 200 years later. But she's a role swap of Dulcinea, and this revealed why she was the architect of the rebellion against Don Quixote, how they found out about the location of the Helm of Mambrino, and it's revealed that Sancho was in on it in this universe. I'll cover that in more detail once we get to that identity. She came up with this plan because she couldn't stand to see the slow and painful torture of being blood deprived, not just for herself, but the other kindreds. It also spoke more of how they acquired relics from the peddler that keeps cheating Don Quixote, despite the fact that if he wanted to, he'd drain that peddler dry and turn them into a blood bag. Thankfully, the peddler did not incur Don Quixote's wrath. Next we have Zwei Association West Section 3 Sinclair. And this one starts with a well-dressed citizen speaking of Zwei West being quite skilled at rescue operations, due to their experience rescuing people from X-Corp excavation sites. Expectant and dependent on Sinclair, Carmen saw that Sinclair was walking through the streets alongside a client as the details of the contract was spoken of. The well-dressed citizen understood that it's Sinclair's first time in the North, but it's a rescue operation regardless. They had faith in them. Sinclair told them that he'd try his best, as far as his abilities would allow. Carmen saw that some might find his reply casual, but the child's expression remained conflicted. His eyes were nervously scanning the various flyers posted all over the street. Sinclair pointed them out. The well-dressed client told him that it was due to all those syndicates that have started popping up, asking if this was why Sinclair was there. He confirmed this was for a contract. He also saw flyers looking for missing people among syndicate eradication bounties. The client saw them as upstart syndicates, small-time operations cashing in on the chaos by kidnapping people for ransom. One of them that was taken by them was their son, asking him to save their son, promising a handsome reward if successful. Just as Sinclair was to confirm this, one of the other fixers who was listening to the client blurted out a complaint. A fixer from the south asked if the president can trust him, seeing him as inexperienced, asking if they came up there from the south to work with that rookie, mocking his outfits, seeing them as more than enough to rescue the president's son. Sinclair told them that it's how they dress in the West. Carmen wasn't sure if this comment was out of spite or ignorance. Sinclair saw that Southern Fixer's antagonistic attitude as confusing, but this didn't cause him to walk away from the contract. targets. He told them that he'll visit his association and submit the documents needed for the contracts. This amused the Southern fixer, and Sinclair put his foot down and left to seal the deal. During the mission, sounds of metal clashed against metal, and the air-shredding sound of projectiles echoed in the warehouse. Projectiles. That might mean firearms, which don't come cheap. Carmen saw that Sinclair built a formation with the other fixers to hold back the syndicates that kidnapped the missing people. Sinclair found their targets, but the situation was not in their favor. The syndicate was fighting against them. If he ran off on his own to rescue the target, it would leave the other fixers in jeopardy. It's why he couldn't break formation. It was a stalemate. Then the Southern fixer couldn't believe it. It was unfortunate. It was because arrows intended for the fixers. Oh, so it was bows and arrows. We're heading straight for Sinclair's rescue targets. So he had no reason to hesitate to do what he needed to. The Southern fixer didn't want him to leave the vanguard. He apologized for doing so. He promised to protect the client's child. But he can't protect the client's child and them. He leaped between the rescue target and the attacks that was meant to hit the client's child, determined to protect the targets, even if he broke formation. The others tried to fill the gap in the formation. Sinclair was taking most of the punishment before. His absence left a large hole. The Southern fixers struggled to hold the line. The vanguard fell apart without Sinclair. Then there was a citizen that was at risk, begging him to help them. Other civilians did the same. He didn't move from his position, not even the child's pleading. Sinclair said that he can't protect everyone, lacking the wisdom to do that. Carmen commented that some called the Zwei greedy, selfish shields, only protecting those who pay them to. He'd already accepted that dishonorable title. He made a promise to return the client's child home safely, no matter what, as he'd defend his client with his life. Sinclair hauled his protection targets from the ground and hurriedly escaped from the warehouse, leaving the others to die. He protected what he could, which was those that he promised to protect. The divergence point is likely when he escaped the murder of his family, where instead of being found by Limbus Company, he was able to somehow get into the Zwei Association. Now, this isn't the first Zwei identity that he had. The last one was Zwei South Section 6 when he was a rookie. Either in this universe he was in the West instead of the South, or he transferred to the West after initially working for the Zwei in the South. This revealed that when it comes to rescuing targets, they will only rescue those that they're contracted to rescue, quite willing to leave everyone else to die if they're not being contracted to rescue them. This gave the Zwei the reputation as being greedy shields, only protecting those that they're paid to do so. The West is specifically known for rescue operations. He wields the same standard issue sword of the Western Zwei Association fixers, although he wields it in a different way to Ishmael. Next we have Deviat Association North Section 3 Sinclair. Sinclair was at a Deviat Association warehouse, which was brimming with the beeps of electronics and harsh noises of metal. Carmen saw that his heart swelled with excitement as he returned from a delivery mission. The obvious elation made some of his co-workers see that something good must have happened to him. But what he was really excited about was the payout for that delivery. Bolnista was finished calculating the shipping fee and sign there. Sinclair was done delivering a fairly valuable item. There was a little mistake in calculating the delivery routes. The delivery schedule, rather, but that mistake came around to be pretty nice for him as it motivated him to make the delivery a day before the deadline. He had to cover a rather long distance, even though he never strayed from the routes. Sinclair believed that it would be good, yet he received a figure that didn't make sense. He was expecting twice that number. Podnista verified the balance and the shipping fee was considered correct. Carmen saw the urban geography of the city was so complicated to the point where measuring the real distance between 2 points was very difficult. At least for humans. Because calculations done by AIs, which as long as they're unable to pass for human, are legal. They're rarely incorrect. Podnista told him that the cost of activating decay particles and mode conversion had been reflected in that final balance. Sinclair didn't believe this. The courier trunk that he used last time didn't charge him that much, and he used it at a much higher output level. Podnista initiated the return process. Sinclair used other Podnistas, and he wasn't charged this much. Podnista told him that the courier trunk return was accepted. The Deviant Association always appreciates the hard work of their fixers. Sinclair wanted an answer to his question. Some of the others began crowding around him as he began to raise his voice out of frustration. One of them was munching on an energy bar and approached him and looked at the monitor in his courier trunk. Rodya wanted to know what was going on. Sinclair was about to tell her what the problem was. The payout was really small this time, for some reason. Rodya saw it as a big deal if something is messing with his payout, examining the courier trunk. She asked what he encountered to force him into entering a hammer mode. Something that he should only use when he had no other choice. Sinclair gave her the story. The Podnista detected a battle between syndicates on the current route, so it rerouted. Sinclair asked how they're doing on time. Podnista told him that there's a 3-hour delay. The route change leaves 24, then an explosion happened and he was left with 10 minutes. This alarmed Sinclair. This was less time than he thought. Podnista was reassessing the analysis. The AI navigation had already passed the system integrity verification process. He told it to forget it, there's no time, ordering it to reset to the previous routes, going straight through the gang war. It did so. The previous route would have given him 24 hours and 10 minutes, but the 24 hours part was hidden by the sound of the nearby explosion. It'd be enough time for Rodya to grab a snack on the way, but for him, it was enough to convince him to charge through the fighting between the syndicates, not hesitating to do so. Sinclair asked them to clear the way. He was running on the rooftops and the syndicates noticed this. They recognized the trunk as that of a Deviant fixer, what they would use, each believing that they brought an association fixer into this. Sinclair told them that he doesn't know what they're talking about, asking them to clear the way. One of the thugs told him to put the bag down and back off, as they were accusing each other of hiring Sinclair. Sinclair was even more disturbed than either of them and ordered Podnista to raise the output threshold. It did so. Multiple hostiles detected in the surrounding area, recommending mode conversion. Sinclair asked if it was really necessary. Podnista told him that engaging in combat without mode conversion reduced the chance of victory by 10.2%. Sinclair relented and ordered mode conversion to be engaged. The syndicates decided to put aside their differences just long enough to jump Sinclair, understanding that he wasn't affiliated with either of them. But they greatly underestimated him. He had many augmentations purchased with the money he made as a fixer, which assisted him with controlling the courier trunk's high output mode. He swung the trunk in an amateurish way. Yes, an amateurish way, but each enemy struck flopped to the ground, horribly mangled. This made his face turn pale at this sight. He struggled not to vomit, and then he broke through walls and doors in his way. Winning the fight wasn't his plan. It was to safely make it through to his destination. Back in the present, Sinclair concluded his story, and Rodya was thinking that he was from a rich family who wouldn't do that. Sinclair wanted her to spare him that. Rodya then asked more about the courier trunk that he used for that contract. He described it as a bit different, but very strong. It's how he got through that delivery so fast. This told Rodya what went wrong. The polu that he returned when activated covered its large surface area with decay energy, which made it not very energy efficient. Sinclair understood that to be the reason why the energy output was low. Well, the payout, rather, was lower than expected. While the payout wasn't a bad joke, it was much less than he imagined on the way back. Carmen thought that Rodya felt bad for Sinclair. She slapped his back with an open palm. This made him jolt and whipped around with a reproachful look. She didn't see this as important. He got paid at the end of the day. Sometimes she's not paid at all because she used it all up on the trip. Sinclair was more understanding and thanked Rodya for cheering him up. Rodya then asked if they can go out for a meal together, now that he's made some money. Sinclair was going to pick up his next contract. Rodya told him not to skip meals to do them, and it was lunchtime anyway. Rodya asked her polu where to find places to eat. Great food. Tasty food, even. Her Polonista completed a search and set a route. Sinclair didn't know it could do that. Rodya implied that this feature is rare for courier trunks. Sinclair never got a Polonista that. Sinclair felt left out by the kind of tone of that Polonista that Rodya was using, as they were walking to the eatery. He sat down and ate the meal. He increasingly complained to her about the Polonista that returned itself without even asking him. Even worse, the place suggested by his co-worker's Polonista was delectable. More specifically, the food served there. Clearly, when Sinclair's family was murdered and he had to rebuild his life from practically nothing, he, eventually found himself in the north of the city and was also recruited into Deviet Association, who primarily deal with courier work. They're basically militant FedEx, as their courier trunks can increase their combat capabilities. The closer they are to the delivery date, the more powerful it becomes, but if they're late, it can kill the wielder of it. But this revealed that the courier trunks have different models, which varies in what they're capable of. What Sinclair used wasn't as energy efficient with the decay particle field and mode conversion, so this made it more costly than expected. It's rare to have features like navigation to a good eatery or it returning automatically without asking it to do so. Likely after delivery and possibly having some W Corp tech built into it. It also has different built-in weapons, as while Rodya's devious identity had a large blade, Sinclair's devious identity has a hammer, a more blunt force approach. Yes, that's his method of dealing with thieves. The decay particle field and mode conversion might deduct from the shipping fee calculation, but in some cases it's necessary as, well, you can't do your job and get paid if you're dead. Now for middle little brother Sinclair. Massault spoke of Title 125, Section 79, Row P, which was an East exclusive clause, which required them to cut off the heads of the offending party cleanly using a weapon. This was resolved. Sinclair remarked that he liked to go into details, consider this great work. They needed to move on to the next one right away. Massault understood. Don Quixote alerted Sinclair that someone had insulted the big brother in her presence, so Sinclair ordered her to rotate his ankles 4 more times. Ooh, that's got to hurt. She then carried out this judgment, as the vengeance fugitive screamed in agony. Carmen spoke of how the back streets of District 8 were in complete disarray thanks to an untimely visit from the middle. The middle of the East had been away from District 8 for a while due to certain issues. Most vengeance fugitives who were either able to escape from the middle or had their sentences delayed for reasons that were unclear were all preparing to make an escape. That vengeance fugitive heard that they'd left District 8. Sinclair told him that they were fortunate that they caught him before he fled. If he escapes, the punishment would have been doubled by the time they eventually caught up to them. Carmen knew that they would have escaped if it weren't for the big brother and the little brothers, and at least one little sister from the south. This was because someone decided to steal the big brother's hair salon coupons in District 21. The middle of the south travelled to the eastern part of the city to pursue them. To some, this would be foolish and frivolous, but for the middle, it's serious business. Sinclair told them that he'll be back soon. He thought back to his conversation with the big brother. Carmen saw that Sinclair checked the time, likely out of anxiety. The big brother had left the little brothers and the little sister in his care, and he wanted to deal with that business before he returned. The big brother remembered that normally he'd left their siblings in District 8 to deal with that, but his over-enthusiasm gave him undue trouble. Sinclair told them that there's no such thing with family. The big brother couldn't bring himself to forgive them. They darted to leave his diary discarded on the ground. They also dared to nick his hair salon coupons. Sinclair told him that they'll take care of the small tasks, so he can go do some sightseeing now that they're in District 8, suggesting that he get himself some of those boluses so that he can avenge his hair salon coupons with real vigour, as that place was pretty popular for medical tours, telling the big brother that he doesn't have to worry about them. He told them that they had to visit the senior brothers and sisters of the East. The big brother would leave it to them while he was gone. He'll be back in 4 hours. Then Carmen heard a loud, dramatic voice that broke through Sinclair's thoughts that went back to earlier on their trip. It came from Don Quixote, who told him that both acts of vengeance shared to them in the book have been paid for. Massault saw this as precisely calculated. among the retributions that have been synchronized to their books of vengeance. 5 of them have been highlighted by their seniors in the East. They are now complete. This was satisfactory to Sinclair, and they even had 20 minutes to spare. Sure that this will satisfy the middle of the East, after taking care of the few lines of vengeance. Carmen saw that Sinclair and the other little brothers and sister were having a discussion in a circle. He told them to shut up and ask one question at a time. Does he have any restaurant recommendations in District 8? He understood that it's for treating the big brother. He already had a reservation for a pretty good roast duck place, so that's not a worry. Wanting to move on to the next question, a bungling little brother asked if his outfit would be okay, as he wore that all the way from the port. Sinclair was dismayed at him, asking that now? They don't have a uniform policy like a legit association. They just have to blend in with each other. Carmen saw that others' questions included, what should they expect from the East? What taboos should they watch out for? How can they be sure that the big brother has the best possible time while he's there? Sinclair was able to answer most of the barrage of questions. Then Don Quixote asked how he's so knowledgeable about the matters of the East. Was he from that region? Sinclair denied this. He just lived there for a while due to certain events. Then he asked if there was anything more to add to their sins. They should throw the whole book at them to make sure that their big brother is happy. He asked Massault asking what the punishment for stealing hair salon coupons is. Massault told him that it's Title 8, Section 20, Row A, Line 6. Complete and total extermination of all involved parties. Sinclair can't see it getting much worse than that for them. Massault noted that a few more articles can be used to punish them further, if certain impudent behaviours are observed after their encounter. Sinclair saw that the big brother had a good time there. Carmen saw that after Sinclair stared at its text for a while, he shut the Book of Vengeance and brought the others to attention. He's acting like he's their boss, but they don't seem to mind. He's been with the middle for a while, despite his young age. He's likely to be promoted to young brother soon. He's also been on several vengeance hunts alongside the big brother. Some were pretty significant. The big brother returned, asking if they were all set. Sinclair confirmed that they were, noting that he returned early. The big brother wanted to sightsee, but he couldn't focus on anything but the hair salon coupons that they stole from him. He also told him to take something and share it between the others. Sinclair saw that they were boluses. Tortoise boluses, understanding that it must have cost him a fortune. The big brother told Sinclair that their siblings in the East sold it to them as, at a discounted price, so he picks him up, seeing that he's grown since they've met. He was terrified of even throwing the smallest punch, and yet he'll be promoted to young brother soon. Sinclair asked the big brother not to talk about his early days. Carmen saw that the big brother's description of Sinclair wasn't too different from how he carried himself at that point. The others didn't believe this. Sinclair couldn't wait to move on from that discussion. He turned away and changed it, telling the others that Big Brother has given them boluses, so they really have to get them. Otherwise they'll think that the middle can talk big but do little or nothing. Telling them to show what it means to mess with the middle in the city. They marched behind the little brothers. Carmen saw that the chains on him might one day become shackles to hold him back. For now, They're his unbreakable and trustworthy bonds. The middle are Finger, one of the 5 most powerful syndicates in the city. They focus on vengeance and repaying it. They're a mix of Russian mafia, South American drug cartels, and Warhammer fantasy dwarves. The last one due to their immense vindictiveness. As for who the big brother is, it could be Ricardo, although based on him saying that they nicked his hair salon coupons, it might be the case that Heathcliff is in a role swap with Ricardo. Regardless, Sinclair is role swapped with Werner, the little brother that was with Ricardo as they appeared in District 8. As for the ranks, it appears that little brother is like a thumb soldato, young brother is like a thumb capo, big brother is like a thumb sottocapo, and great brother, or sister, is like a capo de capi. So little, young, big, and great, with insert brother or sister here. The middle can also move between quadrants of the city to help each other out, such as the middle in the east, needing vengeance hunts to happen, where if they're occupied elsewhere, they can ask for the help of other middle in other parts of the city, or if their help is offered, if they're there for an altogether different reason. If similar events happened in the main universe, it's part of why the middle and the east don't back them up. Yes, as no matter how numerous a syndicate is, they can't be everywhere at once. There are also bonuses for being part of the middle, such as being able to buy boluses for a discount. The tortoise ones are likely ones that allow for either durability or stamina recovery. It's also part of their protocol for a big brother to leave a specific little brother in charge of others if a young brother isn't available. Well, a little brother or little sister in charge if a young brother or young sister isn't available. Oh, you get the idea. Sinclair was likely chosen as he was the most senior of the little brothers, considering that he was expected to be promoted. Yes, the divergent point is likely what happened after Sinclair got out of the massacre of his family alive, and he searched for a place where he felt that he belonged. He eventually joined the middle, which seemed to take anyone. That, and they fit in with his desire to enact vengeance against Chroma for killing his parents. Yes, he seems to have spent some time in the East at some point before this, considering that he knows more about it. As we know, he originated from District 11. Let's move on to Lantern Yisang. In the LC, a researcher who had ran after the giggling blue fairy, only to realize that he had walked into an unfamiliar place, whipping around, realizing this mistake, only to see that door locked behind him. Yisang asked him if the door locked behind him, tricked by him again. Carmen observed that Yisang chuckled before gloating at the researcher who was lured in by his EGO gear. This was annoying to the researcher, asking him to stop using his EGO gear for pranks like that, certainly considering that he walked into an abnormality containment unit. Yi-Sang had a report to complete by the end of the day and needed assistance to complete it. The researcher understood where this was going. Yi-Sang asked for his understanding. As the longer an EGO gear was equipped, the greater the synchronization of the user and the source abnormality. The gear transforms and changes with the fluctuations in the level of attunement between the wearer and the source. Deception might not be in his nature, but it's the effects of the gear. The researcher asked him to take it off from time to time. Yi-Sang saw himself as a proper researcher, so how can he? Carmen then noted that LCE, or Lobotomy Corporation in Keflin, is the department that it focuses on studying abnormalities and distortions, while also managing enkephalin extractions. Seeing it is inevitable that studying monsters would invite oddball personalities, but it's more pronounced in that department. The researcher asked if he's going to slowly lose himself to be a proper researcher. What does that make him? It wasn't what he intended to convey. Carmen saw this version of Yi-Sang as one such oddball, truly incomprehensible, as he's fully geared up in EGO gear all day, clocking into work even on his days off. Yi-Sang saw it as something to do by need, as he wears it all the time. For that research report, which concerns him, it's something to be put to use. This made that researcher want to put in a transfer request, giving a veiled threat to watch his back once he gets his own EGO gear. Yi-Sang believed that he'll understand his perspective. The researcher wanted to get on with this, told him to tell him what to do. Carmen saw that if he despised Yi-Sang's trickery so much, he could have simply turned around and left, but he didn't. Or rather, he couldn't. Yi-Sang wanted him to review the files from AFQ 155564 to 30,000 and rearrange them in order. The researcher asked if that's double in a day. Yi-Sang believed so. The researcher believed otherwise on all physical levels, shouting this explosively, asking what was he thinking? Making a locking mechanism like that. What was the purpose of a door that locks from the inside but can't be reopened until a certain amount of work is complete? Yi-Sang saw it as because they're faced with an insurmountable wall to break their wills. Yet if they're surrounded by walls, they have no choice but to crawl out of. The researcher told him not to drag other people into his problems. He had his own responsibilities that he should be working on that day, so Yi-Sang said no. He doesn't. Before the researcher could ask more, he seemed like there was a blackout. Well, it seemed like there was a blackout, rather, and then an ominous red light began to flash. The PA made an announcement. Warning, abnormality containment breach. Code red. Area, office wing C. As if the research didn't have enough to be annoyed about. Carmen knew what the trumpet meant. It was an audio warning that sounded when there was a degree of damage, such as an abnormality containment breach in the facility. The LCE department, the group that absorbed so much from, it absorbed so much from Lobotomy Corporation, it had maintained that practice. She noticed the difference in how it sounded there, though the researcher asked if that was the first trumpet. This took him by surprise. This was a grave situation, and Yi-Sang knew this would happen. He told the researcher that he was excellent at what he did, even on days when he wasn't on duty. He came into the office composing abnormality experiment reports. Seeing it as quite exciting for him as an opportunity to wear the EGO gear prototype of that abnormality. The EGO gear in question was a malice with many eyes, which seemed to grow from what he was wearing. Carmen saw that the confused researcher was before him with an expression of sorrow or determination. It wasn't clear. The researcher didn't have time to ask about this. There's an abnormality containment breach. They're stuck in there thanks to this stupid locking mechanism. Yisang explained that the locking mechanism opens under two conditions. 1, when the work is complete. 2, when the abnormality within the office is dealt with. The latter needs to be dealt with now. The researcher was so annoyed that he couldn't be bothered to say anything. Yisang spoke of it being 2 weeks since the expungement of his records. In the process of raising his attunement levels for his report, his resonance with the gear was broken and he was devoured, becoming a lure himself, becoming a part of the abnormality itself, forced to walk the department. This surprised the researcher. Yisang confirmed this to be true, nodding gravely. He told the researcher that he was never one to establish a high level of resonance with that gear. What had lured him to insist that he be the one to test it. So he was forced to use every hour that he had to understand the EGO and the Fey Lantern abnormality, seeing it as about time that he's laid to rest. The researcher understood, and the hammer was swung as the Fey Lantern leapt out, swinging the hammer repeatedly, all to complete the abnormality suppression in a way that's common with companies that deal with abnormalities. This is clearly a role swap of Martin, the assistant researcher of Hohenheim, even down to the Lantern EGO weapon and suit. Makes you wonder if Martin is one of the damned dozen in this universe. It's also clear that the trumpet system is in place from Lobotomy Corporation. This happens whenever there's a containment breach, which sounds up to 2 more times, depending on how severe the situation. Although, as Carmen made it clear, Limbus Company has a different sound for it. This one deals rupture and is a high-risk, high-reward identity, as it causes more damage with one attack with each 1% of his HP that's missing, and increases final power on skills if he fails his unbreakable coin attacks. More rupture can be inflicted when he has the Fairy Lure status, but this comes at the cost of receiving 50% more damage. He also loses SP from winning clashes and gains SP from losing clashes. As for the EGO gear, it appears to be not as, how can I put it, stable as Lobotomy Corporation's, as it has a higher risk of it taking over the wearer or the wielder, depending on the EGO gear itself. Now for Lu Association South Section 3 Yisang. Yisang was reading a book while taking a stroll, while Rodya and Ishmael were shopping for food, with Ishmael trying to keep Rodya from overdoing it with her excitement. A stroll in the city was rare. He felt the sun on his shoulders. It was an unfamiliar sensation. He spent days in the archives, poring over volumes of books. Last time he saw proper sunlight was when he was moved up to Section 3, when his personal belongings were transferred to his new quarters. If it weren't for his colleagues pushing him outside in the hopes of him bathing in the breeze and sun, that day wouldn't be significant. He saw it as quite pleasant, now that he was there. He wasn't distracted by his surroundings, perceiving it as white noise as he was focused on his text, only distracted by his tea that he was holding in his other hand. He liked the flavour, wanting to add a note of the one that made it to the Lu Association to place them within their building. The sky was tall and crisp, but it was a reminder that it was a deception. It's still pleasant to him, even though he was coerced. There was much for him to gain from this, seeing this as an opportunity to try the unfamiliar, seeing it as a learning experience, although social interaction with his colleagues will take a while for him to adjust to. He doesn't see himself as unsociable, but he was mostly in the archives for the duration of his time in the Lu Association. He saw himself as a fool to believe that he could advance by poring through manuals and training his body. Yet he didn't go beyond Section 4 for a while. Learning by itself counted for nothing. Improving the firewood isn't enough to make the flame grow, at least not on its own. This is why the knife hand techniques were taught in Section 4 of the South, to assist in understanding this. He initially failed to understand that his hands were meant to be used like blades, but once he learned this and to not be so limited, then the flame burns brighter in collection, not isolation. He rose to Section 3. We then see him in battle with others, wielding a flaming sword, fire-wreathed it, burning his foes with ease. He knew that it took the culmination of countless workshops that shaped the weaponry of the Lu Association. Its flame, its spark hardly lit at all, yet caught fire, only for those who understood it. This is the truth of Lu Association's standard equipment. Flame-wreathed weaponry known for ease of use, yet a deeper understanding of it needed to wield them to their fullest. Yes, it was needed for that. Tracing back to the gloves of Section 6, and as the arsenal grows, so does the appreciation for the togetherness. Then those who reach Section 1 would find their understanding complete. That's the philosophy of that approach. Those that stand alone for the flaming sword are left with nothing to burn, their spark and embers darkened. Yet those who stand together, though they wield blades of wood, may become a great bonfire that bursts with sparks of their fellows. It's why he requested to be dispatched eastwards, seeing the martial forms, traditions, and sections differing by region. He might find where and how the core tenets of the Lu Association philosophy originated, which is camaraderie and warmth settled. Should he learn how one talks and grows their understanding of others, he'll find himself moving forwards. In the process, he'll learn how he might grow closer to his section, those who pushed him to live that day. Now this reveals something. While most prefer to use martial arts, augmented by gauntlets that emit flame, within the Lu Association, certainly when they all start with, and can even have that fitted into a prosthetic arm, like with Liu Gregor, this variant of Yisang wields a sword. I suspect that from Section 3 or higher, they're allowed to wield melee weapons, but it's not mandatory. This is based on Section 1 and 2, where most prefer martial arts, but Zhao prefers a guando and Lawel, her husband, prefers a sword. As for the divergence points, it's likely to be after he escaped T-Corp collectors and also escaped N-Corp. But instead of being recruited into Limbus Company, he found a place for him in the Lu Association, where he studied the manuals and honed his body. But it's revealed that this by itself counted for nothing. Where to truly advance in an association that deals in all-out war, where working with others and socializing with them is encouraged, he needs to work well with others on the field. He also wanted to learn from the Lu Association in the East, noting that they operate differently from those in the South. which makes sense as the Zwei in the West are along the lines of knightly orders with swords that wouldn't look out of place in the hands of Cloud Strife or Zack Fair, which is different to the Zwei in the South, which are big on suits and trench coats, wielding Zwei handers or maces. As for the weapons that are wreathed in flame, it's likely not Stigma Workshop tech, as that makes the blade hot enough to cut through most metals, which is what the Dawn Office and possibly Virgilius has in their weapons. This is as if the weapon was coated in oil and set alight. While the Liu Association is predominantly blunt force dealing, Yi Sang is different, as he has a weapon that can slash his enemies. He's also capable of healing SP with one of his attacks and even with his passive, if enough wrath is gathered. Right, just have Ishmael and Heathcliff to go before I can go through Don Quixote's identities. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!